Hey, this is Will Welker. This is going to be another update on my superfood duckweed grow tower and the daily harvest that I get out of these 6 levels. So we're going to check in on the quail here. We're going to do some feeding. They've got a little bit of the fermented feed left over. I'm going to add in some duckweed. That's partially dried. It's not really dry. And then this bottom one, we have a cat, so I cover this so they don't get beheaded in the process of eating. And so this is some fermented feed. I just feed out of this, and when it starts to get low, I just add more feed and more water. And typically it's an anaerobic digestion process, so you want the lactobacillus, and the surface can get too much oxygen and generally get moldy. So generally every time I feed, if I scrape the surface off, so that never has a chance to sit around and get moldy. And this is a 5-level grow tower with one pump, and it cycles water to the top that runs this agitation water wheel, and then each level the water drops down and turns another water wheel to agitate and stir the duckweed growth. So a daily harvest from this 5-level or 6-level unit looks like this. You get several pounds of high protein feed, and I've been feeding that to my chickens and quail. And then I've got the reservoir down here. And it's been a learning experience. If I had to do this over again, and I'll probably yet add this, is I need to add an overflow protection, because sometimes the algae can clog up the drain. So I need a larger overflow protection. Probably in the end here with like a 2-inch pipe or a 1.5-inch pipe, just so you have a high volume overflow protection. And I would probably also, it would be nice to access the back side of it, because you have to sort of dig algae out from time to time. If you stir it too much, if you have these wheels running too much, then the duckweed don't like being dunked constantly, because they have to maintain an oily surface on the surface of the leaf in order to float. So if you do it too much, it can be detrimental to the duckweed, but if you don't do it enough, it's conducive to algae growth, and you can see some of the algae right there. And by the way, I've been feeding the algae and everything to my chickens and everything, and they seem to do fine on it. I don't really know exactly what species it is. I'm sure it's high protein. It's probably fine, but it tends to be a little stringy and clogs up the drains. And so you have a 55-gallon drum that siphons into the reservoir when the reservoir gets low, and that drum is full of pre-mixed hydroponic solution, and then that pump pumps it up this one central line to the very top, and then it runs a water wheel, and I have the pump running intermittently to control the flow. And to give you an idea how I do that, this is a timer for that, that's used for that. You can set the off time and the on time, and right now I have it set for about 10 seconds on and 10 seconds off, and then the whole thing shuts down, including the lights, at night. So far, if you're considering, should I grow duckweed in my house, first of all, don't launch into some huge project like this right away. You can grow duckweed in a small 10-20 tray about this size, just to get your feet wet and to understand how it works, and do some study on the nutritional value, the protein content, and you'll understand why I've gone through all this trouble to raise duckweed. The purpose of duckweed is to replace the grain supply chain in animal feed, or at least a big part of it. And my plan is to grow this outside in a much larger pond. The purpose for growing it indoors is so I could continue researching throughout the winter and have some significant production of duckweed while I wait for springtime to come. And also it helps to have multiple cultures of duckweed all growing at once. You can get a lot of testing done. But if you wanted to do something big like this, I recommend starting small. Just a small container with a little bit of duckweed. You can get duckweed starts at pond and fish supply places. If you go on Etsy and do a search term for Lemna duckweed, you'll find a lot of people who will sell you little samples and you can get started with it. What you'll want to do is put it in a small container so the duckweed can cover the surface. And then as it grows, you can increase the size of the container, because if there's too much open water, then you'll get algae growth underneath. And also, the water I'm using is a normal hydroponic solution. If you look at my resources, you'll see what I use for hydroponics solution. I use the same mix for everything, for all my hydroponics, for all my grow shelves and everything else. So the next stage of this is I'll be at some point I'll stop feeding this to the chickens and start seeding my outdoor pond, because it's starting to warm up outside. It's starting to look like spring out there, so we'll see how that goes.